Welcome. As I stand before you today, it seems to me that we are involved in a holy task. As workers with children and youth, we are the face of Christ to these young hearts. Unfortunately, we know from some of the news stories we've seen that a child's view of God can be damaged by ungodly behavior. We have put safeguards in place to make sure that Seabrook United Methodist Church is indeed a safe place for our children. Part of those safeguards are annual background checks for which each one of you has been asked to fill out a release. Another way we ensure safeguards is in the design of our facilities with our windows and doors. Another way we make sure that this is a safe place for our children is by this safe sanctuary training, which is required of all our clergy and staff and any of those who will be working with our youth, working with our children, or working with vulnerable adults.
Physical abuse is an act or failure to act that endangers a person's physical or mental health.
A non-accidental infliction of physical injury to a child or youth.
Punching, hitting with hand, fist, or object. Kicking, biting, shaking, throwing, choking, or harming the person in some other manner.
Physical abuse can take place even if the caretaker did not intend to hurt the child or vulnerable adult.
Physical abuse can occur if the caretaker places a child or minor in a dangerous situation that results in injury to the child. That is why we don't allow hazing. No hazing.
According to state law, reasonable physical discipline, such as spanking, is not considered physical abuse if it doesn't cause bodily injury to a child. However, we do not consider physical discipline as an appropriate response to behavior issues here at Seabrook United Methodist Church. Instead, we recommend a more reasonable approach, such as time out, keeping in mind the safe sanctuary guidelines, keeping parents involved in behavioral issues. For serious offenses, immediately sending the child home. We've included additional guidelines for positive discipline and guidance as an addendum to our policy. We recommend that you become familiar with these guidelines from the Texas Administrative Code.
One form of abuse is emotional abuse, which involves a pattern of behavior that negatively impacts a child's sense of self-worth and emotional development. The emotional abuse is characterized by ongoing threats or constant verbal criticism, otherwise known as bullying, withholding of love, support, and guidance.
Sexual abuse is defined as the sexual exploitation of a child or minor to gratify improper sexual drives. It can involve activities such as rape, fondling, indecent exposure, or any sexual contact or contact with a child or minor. Examples include displaying sexually suggestive visual materials, making sexual comments or innuendo about one's own or another person's body, touching another person's body, hair, or clothing, touching or rubbing oneself in the presence of another person, kissing, and sexual intercourse. Children are most often abused by someone they know and someone in authority.
Physical abuse, sexual abuse, and neglect all produce emotional damage for the child or the youth. You need to look for these behavioral changes. Frightened by parents or adults, kind of shrinking back as adults approach. These behaviors will raise concerns that abuse might be taking place, but they're not proof. Extreme changes in behavior will display themselves as aggression or being overly passive, overly compliant or overly demanding, and delayed development emotionally or physically.
Signs of abuse include black eyes, broken bones, bruises, bites, burns. Remember that a child may even attempt to conceal an injury. Please note that signs of physical injury are not necessarily proof of abuse, but if the signs appear repeatedly, you should take a closer look.
If a child refuses to change clothes or wears lots of clothes to bed, that is a potential sign of sexual abuse. Bedwetting, nightmares, a sudden change of appetite can also be signs.
Other signs might be attempted suicide or self-inflicted injury like cutting, drug or alcohol abuse, depression, a change in appetite, and always being watchful or expecting something to happen, on guard.
We need 2 or more caretakers involved in activities, with caretakers being in line of sight of each other. The open configuration of our children's area is designed to facilitate line of sight. So we also want to encourage a buddy system with children. When 2 children are together, they are never alone with an adult. And when we need to do one-on-one consulting or mentoring, we need to do it in the line of sight of another adult. We want to minimize one-on-one encounters between minors as well.
Another way to keep children safe is to maintain boundaries. Respect the child's physical boundaries, recognizing that a child's boundaries change as one grows older. Sitting in a lap is appropriate for a child under 4, not so much as the child grows older. Hugs and kisses from a toddler to an adult are different than the same from a youth.
Emotional boundaries must be maintained. You're going to need to watch for inappropriate attachment from the youth, steer clear of inappropriate talk, and do not manipulate emotions. When traveling with minors and youth, the driver will need to be 25 years or older. Ideally, more than one adult will be present. If only one adult is available to drive, then it is best practice for the adults to obtain a signed waiver or release form from the parents so that they are aware that there is only one adult present. You will probably wind up sharing sleeping quarters with the youth or minors when you are traveling on mission trips or camping trips. Ideally, 2 adults will be in each sleeping quarter, but never share a bed with a youth or a child. Never one adult to one youth unless it is a parent or child relationship.
Children and youth need to be taught to be aware of their surrounding situations at all time and to report any unwanted and to report any unwanted behavior directed at them.
And there is a moral and ethical obligation of the church and its staff to inform the children on how to approach someone about unwanted behavior.
Let's talk about reporting. There's actually 2 kinds of reporting we need to talk about. The first kind of reporting is a breakdown in our policies here at the church. If you come across an event where something is taking place without enough adult supervision or not enough adult supervision, please report to the coordinator of the event and contact the senior pastor so that we can get this resolved. The other kind of reporting has to do if an abuse incident actually takes place. If an abuse incident actually takes place, it is our moral and legal responsibility to contact the authorities. You can find the contact information for the authorities printed under our Safe Sanctuary policies. Also, please contact the senior pastor. If an incident happens and you need to interview a child, please be very careful about how you interview the child. You will need to use open-ended questions, very general questions. Tell me what happened. Do not ask leading questions. Do not put ideas in the child's head, such as, did you get touched here or did you get touched there? Our goal is to find out exactly what happened in an accurate manner. And we not only want to protect the child, but we don't want to make false accusations against anybody. If for some reason this attracts news attention, please defer contact with the news media to the appointed person. We don't want to be responsible for disseminating false information. Your cooperation is greatly appreciated.